Have you ever felt your heart break while you were still standing? Not the movie version. Not the sad music version. I mean really felt it, felt your own heartbeat, alive and frantic, hammering right out of your chest, and looked down for the one person who swore they'd hold it forever. And realized they were the ones with their hands already inside your chest. Pulling it out. Piece by piece. That's not heartbreak. That's betrayal wearing heartbreak's face. And I know exactly what that feels like. Because I lived it. I was 26 when I met the love of my life, and I didn't know yet that a person could walk into a room and rearrange the air in it. I was working at a mid-size marketing firm, nothing glamorous, but I was good at it. Sharp. The kind of employee who stayed 2 hours late not because she had to but because leaving something unfinished made her skin itch. My colleagues liked me. My boss trusted me. I had a small apartment, a plant I was slowly killing out of love and neglect in equal measure, and a best friend named Dana who kept telling me I needed to put myself out there. I did not want to put myself out there. The thought alone made something in my stomach clench. I wanted to finish my reports, water my dying plant, and go to bed at a reasonable hour. And then Susan Yin walked into the firm as a new client, and my whole body went quietly, embarrassingly alert. And I know even before she spoke that I was in fact in love with her. She sat across the table from me for that first meeting like she'd been sitting across tables from people her whole life and found every one of them slightly beneath her. Not rudely. Just, with the confidence of someone who's never once doubted she belongs wherever she is. My palms were damp before she'd even said a word. I didn't understand it yet. I just knew my pulse had picked up its pace and wasn't asking my permission. You're younger than I expected, she said, looking at me directly for the first time. Something in my chest jumped, that specific, dangerous jump that happens when someone actually sees you. You're exactly what I expected, I said back, and I felt my own boldness land somewhere between my ribs, half thrill, half dread. Her mouth curved. Just barely. Like she was deciding whether I'd earned the smile. We're going to work well together, she said. I told myself she meant professionally. My whole body hoped she didn't. We worked together 4 months before anything shifted. 4 months of her showing up with 2 coffees, one for her, one for me, exactly the way I took it, memorized without ever being asked. The first time she handed it to me, our fingers brushed on the cup, and I had to look away so she wouldn't see what that tiny contact did to my face. 4 months of her shoulder an inch from mine over a shared screen, and me forgetting, for whole stretches of time, what we were even supposed to be looking at. 4 months of telling myself it was professional. It was not professional. I knew it wasn't, and I lied to myself about it anyway, every single day, because the alternative was terrifying. I was completely, helplessly, quietly in love with her. It sat in my chest like a breath I didn't know how to let out. She asked me to dinner on a Thursday. Not a work dinner, she made that very clear, sitting across from me in an empty conference room at 7 at night, her voice lower than I'd heard it before. I want to take you to dinner. Not for the campaign. Just dinner. My heartbeat was so loud I was sure she could hear it across the table. That would complicate things, I said, even as every cell in my body was already saying yes. Yes, she agreed. Are you coming? I came. My hands were shaking when I picked up my coat, and I remember thinking, distantly, this is either the best decision I've ever made or the worst one, and being unable to tell which. She was brilliant and difficult, and she loved me in a way that was sometimes too much and sometimes not enough, but it was hers. The way she'd text me articles at 2 in the morning with no context, just a link, because she'd read something and thought of me, and I'd lie there grinning at my phone in the dark like a teenager. The way she memorized every coffee order I'd ever mentioned and filed them all away. The night she showed up with takeout from the one restaurant back home I'd offhandedly said I missed, she'd spent 40 minutes tracking it down, and set it on my desk without a word, and I had to blink fast so I wouldn't cry in front of my coworkers. Small things. She loved in small things. I collected every one of them like proof I mattered. I didn't always notice fast enough. That's my part of it. I was building my career, always half distracted, always finishing one more email before bed. Susan needed presence, needed to feel like the most important thing in any room, and some nights I simply didn't have it to give. I still remember the specific, sinking guilt of looking up from my laptop and seeing her face already arranged around the disappointment before I'd even said a word. We fought about it. More than once. You're here but you're not here, she told me once, quiet and tired, while I answered emails on a Sunday morning. Her voice cracked on it, just slightly, and something in my chest cracked back. I put the phone down. I said I was sorry. I meant it with my whole body. We were good at repairing things. I believed in that part of us completely. I thought repair meant we were solid. I didn't understand yet that some people repair things only until the day they've already decided to leave. We moved in together after a year, her place, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a kitchen she actually used, a balcony where we drank wine and argued about films until she conceded the point in a way that somehow still felt like her idea. I gave up my small apartment without mourning it. I learned her rhythms like a second language, the 30 silent minutes she needed every morning before she could speak to anyone, the way she stress-cleaned when a deal was collapsing, the way she slept with one hand on my waist and would have denied ever doing it on purpose. Those 2 years are the ones I hold on to hardest now, when I let myself hold on to anything at all. I remember her cooking badly on purpose some Sundays, just so we'd have an excuse to order in and eat on the floor instead of the table, because she said the table made things feel like a meeting. I remember the year she got the flu right before a huge pitch and refused to cancel it, so I sat up with her until 2 a.m. quizzing her on numbers while she coughed through the answers, and how she looked at me afterward, not with words, just a long, quiet look that said more than she ever let herself say out loud. I remember she wasn't an easy person to love. She ran cold when she was scared and sharp when she was hurting, and I learned to read the difference the way you learn to read weather, a stillness in her jaw before a storm, a particular silence that meant give me space, not distance. I got it wrong sometimes. I'd push when I should have waited, or wait when she needed pushing. We fought. We came back from it. Every time, we came back from it, and I built a kind of faith on that pattern without ever questioning what would happen the one time we didn't. The conversation about kids happened for real about 8 months before everything changed. We were on the balcony, wine going warm in our glasses, and Susan brought it up almost casually, too casually, looking back. I've been thinking about us having a baby. My whole chest lit up. Yeah. She turned her glass by the stem, not quite looking at me. I think we should look into it properly. Donor, clinic, all of it. I remember grabbing her hand across the small table, too excited to play it cool. Okay, when? Soon. She smiled, and it was a real smile. I want to be clear about that. This wasn't a woman who didn't want a child. She wanted one. What she didn't want, it turned out, was what having one might cost her. I've been thinking about logistics too, she said, still turning that glass. The startup's about to close a funding round. Investors are already nervous about a female-led company. If I'm visibly pregnant during due diligence, in board meetings, it changes how they see me. Changes how they see the company. It's not fair, but it's real. I remember nodding along, because it did sound real, because Susan was always the one who thought 3 moves ahead and I trusted her instincts the way you trust weather forecasts from someone who's never once been wrong. So I was thinking, she went on, you carry. It landed soft, wrapped in logic, wrapped in we. Not a demand. Never a demand. Susan didn't make demands, she made cases, airtight ones, and by the time you noticed you'd agreed to something you hadn't fully chosen, it already felt like it had been your idea. My job's more flexible, I said slowly, working it out loud, half convincing myself. I could scale back easier than you could right now. Exactly. She squeezed my hand. It's not forever. Just timing. This round closes, the company stabilizes, and none of this matters anymore. I said yes. I wanted to say yes, I wanted the baby more than I wanted to interrogate the shape of the conversation we just had. I didn't clock, not then, that Susan had managed to want a child and protect every inch of her own trajectory in the same breath, and that I hadn't been given the same math to run for mine. I think about that balcony a lot now. How easy it was for her to make her comfort sound like a compromise. How she got exactly what she wanted, a family, and a career untouched by it, while I was the one who'd end up carrying the actual weight of it, in every sense of that word, alone. We started with the clinic 2 months later. Tentative at first, blood work, a donor profile we picked together on a Sunday afternoon, both of us laughing nervously over a list of physical traits like we were choosing paint colors. Then it stopped being tentative. Then it became something we were actively, hopefully doing. And then, on a Tuesday evening in October, there was a positive test. I was terrified, immediately, completely terrified. I sat on the edge of the bathtub holding that test with my hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped it, and for a full minute I couldn't make a sound. But underneath the terror, almost embarrassingly fast, something else rose up to meet it. Something warm and enormous and certain, filling every hollow place the fear had opened. I wanted this. I wanted it so much it frightened me more than the fear had. I looked up. Susan was in the doorway. Her expression was unreadable, and something cold slid into my chest at the sight of it. "Susan," I said, and I could hear my own voice asking her, silently, to feel what I felt. "I know," she said. "Are you?" "Give me a minute." And she walked out of the bathroom, and I sat there alone with the test still in my hand, my joy suddenly feeling foolish, exposed, like I'd shown her something I should have kept hidden. I told myself it was just her way. That she needed to process. That by morning she'd come around. She did, mostly, held my hand at the first appointment, researched everything obsessively the way she did with anything she cared about, told her closest friend. Cautiously adjusting. I held on to cautiously like it was a rope, and told myself it was enough to keep me standing. I was 6 months along when Susan started pulling away. Not dramatically, nothing that would have set off alarms right away. It was subtle, the way a tide pulls back slowly before it recedes for good. She worked later. Her texts got shorter. She stopped reaching for my hand in bed, and I remember lying there in the dark on the wrong side of that missing hand, telling myself not to make it into something. I thought she was stressed. Her startup was at a critical stage. I gave her space. I made dinner and saved her a plate and told myself, the way you do when you're too afraid to look directly at something, that we'd been through rough patches before and always found our way back. I trusted her. God, I trusted her completely. The morning she left, I woke up and she was already gone. Not unusual, she was an early riser. I showered. Made tea. Sat at the kitchen table. And then, one small detail at a time, the floor started tilting under me. Her laptop wasn't in its usual place. My stomach dropped, just slightly, probably nothing. Her overnight bag was gone from the wardrobe. My hands went cold. Her passport wasn't on the shelf by the door where she always kept it. I stood there in the kitchen with my tea going cold in my hands, my heart suddenly slamming against my ribs, telling myself, out loud, to a room with no one in it, early flight. Work trip. She forgot to mention it. I texted her. Nothing. I called her. Voicemail. I called her work phone. Voicemail. I called Dana, and I heard my own voice shaking in a way I didn't recognize. "Have you heard from Susan?" Dana went quiet. "Jessie," she said, careful, like she was handling something sharp. "She reached out to me last week. I thought she was going to talk to you herself, I swear I didn't let her finish." My whole body already knew, in that sick, plummeting way a body knows things before the mind catches up. She had gone. Not left, gone. The way a person disappears out of a story mid-sentence. No conversation. No confrontation. No note on the table. Just absence, spreading through every corner of the apartment like cold water. Her toothbrush. Gone. I stood in the bathroom staring at the empty spot on the shelf for a full minute, my breath catching somewhere high in my throat. A drawer of clothes. Gone. I opened it and stared into the empty wood like it might explain itself. The small photo of her parents. Gone from the bookshelf, leaving a clean, dustless rectangle where it used to sit, and somehow that empty rectangle undid me more than anything else. I sat down on the floor right there and cried until my chest hurt. She had been planning this for weeks. While she held my hand at appointments. While she sent me articles about growing babies. She had been quietly calculating her exit the entire time, and I had been too in love, too trusting, to see it. She took it all. Without a word. While I was 6 months pregnant with her child. I don't think I have ever felt more alone in a room full of my own furniture. I searched for her for 3 months. I called everyone. I showed up at her startup's office to find new faces and a locked door. Friends I'd known for 2 years stopped answering. One sent a single text, "Please don't contact us," and blocked my number before I could even reply. I filed a missing persons report. The officer was kind, in the gentle way people are kind when they're about to say something that will hurt you. He told me an adult woman with her passport and a wardrobe deliberately emptied was, legally, not missing. I stood outside afterward in the cold with my hand pressed to the swell of my stomach, and I finally let myself understand what I'd been refusing to for weeks. She hadn't disappeared. She had left. She had chosen to leave, and she had chosen, deliberately, carefully, not to tell me. Something in me went very quiet after that. Not calm. Quiet the way a held breath is quiet, right before it breaks. Mia was born on a February morning. Dana was in the room. My mother had flown in. And when they put my daughter in my arms for the first time, impossibly small, impossibly warm, blinking up at me with eyes that hadn't learned to focus yet, I felt 2 things crash into me at once. The most complete love I had ever known in my life, so sudden and total it nearly knocked the breath out of me. And, right alongside it, a grief so clean it almost felt like relief. Because now I knew. There was nothing left to wait for. No more searching. No more phone in my hand at 2 a.m., no more hoping for a text that would never, ever come. It was just Mia and me. I looked down at her small, furious, perfect face and I made myself a promise, that would be enough. It had to be. 5 years changes a person. I won't pretend it hardened every part of me, Mia made sure of that. You can't stay entirely cold when someone climbs into your lap every morning to tell you about her dreams with the breathless urgency of a news anchor. But in the places Susan used to live, the part of me that used to reach for someone in the dark, that used to picture a future with another name written into it, something had gone still. Quiet. Sealed over, like scar tissue. I didn't date. I told myself I didn't have time, which was true, and that I didn't have interest, which was mostly true, and that I was fine, which was fine enough to get through most days. I built my consultancy from nothing. One good client, then another, then another. I became known for being thorough, reliable, unshakable under pressure, and there was a bitter kind of pride in that, in having turned the worst thing that ever happened to me into the steel I built a career out of. By any outside measure, I was doing extremely well. Inside, I had simply stopped thinking about Susan Yoon. Or told myself I had. She was a closed chapter. I had moved on. Or so I believed, right up until the morning that belief got tested. An email came on a Tuesday morning in November, while Mia sat across from me eating cereal, mid-story about a classroom dispute over colored pencils, and I was doing that particular working mother trick of nodding at the right moments while half reading my phone. Then I saw the subject line. Partnership Opportunity, Cho Group International. My spoon stopped halfway to the bowl. I knew the name. Everyone in my industry did. A tech conglomerate expanding fast into Southeast Asia, known for sharp acquisitions and a CEO who chose partners carefully. A contract with them wouldn't just help my business, it would change its whole shape. My hands weren't quite steady as I read it. Once. Twice. A third time, just to be sure it was real. I replied within the hour, my heart still going a little too fast. The meeting was in Seoul. I booked the flight that same afternoon. I kissed Mia's forehead Friday morning, strawberry shampoo, the same one she'd been obsessed with for 6 months straight. 3 days, I told her. Back Sunday. Bring me something, she said, already reaching for her grandmother's hand. I always bring you something. Something good this time. Hey. She grinned, Susan's chin, my eyes, a personality entirely, defiantly her own, and something in my chest squeezed so hard it almost hurt, the way it always did when I looked at her too long. I walked into the airport feeling something I hadn't let myself feel in a long time, that the future might actually be opening up, instead of just continuing on without me. Cho Group headquarters was the kind of building that communicates power without trying. Glass, steel, the particular hush of a place where big decisions get made on schedule. I sat down in the boardroom with the stillness I'd spent 5 years learning to perform. Composure as a professional asset. Armor with good posture. Haley Cho walked in exactly on time, and I revised everything I'd expected of her in about 4 seconds. Warm. Direct. She shook my hand like she meant it. I've been looking forward to this, she said, and it didn't sound like a pleasantry, it sounded true. We talked for 40 minutes. No small talk. Just the work, and I felt myself relax into it, into her, in a way I hadn't expected. I liked her. Genuinely, immediately, against every guarded instinct I'd built over 5 years. We were moving toward yes. I could feel it settling into place. Then Haley glanced toward the door, and her whole face softened, that specific, private softening that happens when someone you love walks into a room. I hope you don't mind, she said. My wife joins my bigger meetings. Good instincts about people. Of course, I said, already picking my pen back up. The door opened. Midnight blue blazer. Styled hair. That particular posture of someone who has spent years learning to take up exactly as much space as she chooses. She was looking at her phone. She pulled out the chair beside Haley without glancing up. Saturday. Then she looked up. And the whole room disappeared. Not like in a film, no music, no slow motion. It happened the way real things happen, instant, silent, no warning at all. 1 second I had a pen in my hand and a proposal in front of me. The next, there was no pen, no proposal, no boardroom, no city through the window. There was only her. My heart slammed once, hard, against my ribs, then seemed to stop altogether. Older. Sharper around the edges. Seated beside her wife. In a city I'd flown to for a business meeting. Looking directly at me. 2 seconds passed. I counted every one of them, my pulse roaring in my ears. Something moved across her face, I saw it, even though she was good, even though she'd always been unshakable. A flicker. Recognition. Something almost thrown. Then it was gone. Smoothed flat. Sealed shut. She looked at me the way you'd look at a stranger who happened to be sitting across a conference table. Politely. Distantly. Like I was furniture. Like 5 years and a daughter in a hospital room I'd sat in alone had never happened at all. This is my wife, Haley said, warm, utterly unaware of the war that had just detonated silently across her own table. Susan. And Susan said, in the voice I had once known better than my own heartbeat. Lovely to meet you. Something in my chest didn't break so much as shatter, all at once, in total silence, while my face stayed perfectly still. I don't fully remember standing. I remember being careful, not rushing, not stumbling, not letting my voice give me away. I remember setting my pen down with deliberate, surgical precision because my hands needed something exact to do or they were going to start shaking. Haley looked startled. Susan didn't move at all. "Excuse me," I said. My voice came out steady. "I have no idea how. I need a moment." And I walked out, spine straight, heart in absolute pieces behind it. The hallway was marble and silence. I made it around the corner, out of sight of the glass wall, before my back found the wall behind me and I let it hold me up. I pressed into it and breathed. 1 breath. 2. 3. My hands were trembling. My eyes were burning in that specific, dangerous way that means tears are one blink away from winning. 32 floors below, Soul moved on, indifferent, not knowing or caring that Jessie Park was standing in a hallway trying to remember how to be a person again. She didn't just move on. The thought landed with the flat weight of fact, not the sharp edge of a wound. Somehow that was worse. She'd built a whole life. A new city. A warm, decent wife. A company powerful enough that people crossed the world to sit across from it. Everything gleaming. Everything as far as it was possible to get from a cold apartment, unanswered calls, and a hospital room where I held our daughter alone. And she had looked at me, really looked, for 1 full second, and found nothing there worth acknowledging. I pressed the back of my hand to my mouth and held it there, hard, until the shaking eased. I thought of Mia's face that morning. Strawberry shampoo. Something good this time, said like the world was still simple, still made of small collectible gifts. Susan had never seen her. Never asked. Never, in 5 years, sent a single message. My eyes stung. I closed them. When I opened them again, something in me had settled. Not healed, nowhere close to healed. Just settled, the way a scar settles, smooth over a wound that no longer bleeds but is always there, just under the surface, waiting for pressure. I straightened my blazer with hands that had finally stopped shaking. I squared my shoulders. I walked back in. Susan hadn't moved. Haley was pouring water, giving her hands something to do inside the awkward quiet. I sat down. My heartbeat was still too fast, but nothing on my face showed it. I apologize for the interruption. My voice came out level. Completely level. I was almost proud of it, in a hollow sort of way. Where were we? Haley looked at me with something like relief. The rollout timeline. Right. I opened my portfolio. I continued. I did not look at Susan once for the rest of that meeting. Not once. But I felt her watching me the entire time, and every cell in my body stayed rigid under. The meeting ended with a handshake and a promise to follow up. Haley walked me to the elevator herself and said she thought we'd be a strong fit. I meant it when I agreed. That part, at least, was untouched by everything else in that room. The doors closed. I watched the floor numbers fall. 29. 28. 27. My reflection in the brushed steel looked calmer than I felt. The doors opened on the lobby. I walked out. I made it 12 steps across the marble before a hand closed around my arm, firm, deliberate. Jessie. 1 word. My name in her voice. And despite 5 years, despite a daughter, despite an entire life rebuilt from nothing, my body remembered her before my mind could brace for it. My breath caught, my skin went tight, some old, humiliating part of me leaned toward that voice before I could stop it. I stopped walking. I turned. Susan stood behind me, expression carefully arranged, the boardroom face, the confrontation face, the face built for moments that required feeling nothing visibly. She looked exactly like herself. Like no time had passed. Like she could say my name in a marble lobby and it would still mean what it used to mean, that I belonged to her. I waited, my pulse hammering, my face giving away nothing. "Whatever you think is happening here," she said, "quiet, stop it. I came here for a business meeting." My voice didn't shake. I was almost surprised by that. "And now you've had it." Cool. Controlled. The voice she used when she'd already decided how a conversation would end. "I've built something here. I have a life. I have a wife who has nothing to do with anything that happened between us. Whatever you're feeling right now, you don't get to tell me what I'm feeling." It came out sharper than I meant it to, and something in me was fiercely glad it did. A beat of silence. She looked at me, and for one single moment, the control slipped. I saw something underneath. Not guilt, not quite. Something older and less comfortable than guilt. Then it was gone. "I wasn't ready," she said. "For any of it. You knew that." "I told you." "You told me," I said slowly, feeling each word land like a stone I was finally allowed to set down, "that you needed a minute. And then you left. While I was 6 months pregnant." Without a word. Silence. "Jessie. I'm not here to relitigate 5 years ago, Susan." I said her name carefully, like I was setting something heavy down for the last time. "I came here for Haley Cho's business. And I'm very good at my job. So." I held her gaze 1 second longer than was comfortable for either of us. Then I walked out through the revolving doors into the sole afternoon, and only once the glass had spun shut behind me did I let my hands start shaking again. That night, in my hotel room, I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, staring at nothing. I called my mother. Heard Mia in the background, deep into a very serious argument about whether cereal counted as dinner, which, honestly, fair, and something in my chest loosened just slightly at the sound of her voice. "Everything okay?" my mother asked. "Fine," I said. "Business went well." "Good. Come home safe." I hung up and sat in the quiet, and slowly, the thing that had been sitting in my chest since I turned and saw Susan's face began to take a shape I recognized. She had looked at me like I was beneath her. Like the woman she'd abandoned, pregnant, alone, calling numbers that never picked up, was something she'd simply outgrown. An embarrassment. Something managed and dismissed. Like I owed her the grace of disappearing quietly. Like Mia, our daughter, who existed, who had Susan's chin and laughed too loud and was the single best thing in my entire life, didn't register enough to even ask about. Something hot and steady started building behind my ribs. Not grief this time. Something with edges. I stood, walked to the window, looked out at the city, lit up, vast, indifferent. I thought about Haley. Warm, brilliant, decent Haley, who'd shaken my hand like she meant it and listened like I was worth listening to. Married to a woman who'd stood in a lobby and told me, without a flicker of shame, to disappear. I thought about what it might do to someone to learn the person they loved had a whole hidden life. A whole unacknowledged child. A whole abandoned woman, filed away like an old contract nobody bothered to close out. I thought about what Susan valued most. And then, very calmly, very deliberately, I thought about what it would cost her to lose it. I picked up my phone. Found Haley's card, still in my jacket pocket from 3 hours before. I opened a new message. My thumb hovered over the screen, and my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I typed, "I'd love to continue our conversation about the partnership over dinner, if you're available this week." I stared at it for a long time. Then I heard Susan's voice again, smooth and certain, echoing in the marble quiet of that lobby. "Whatever you're feeling right now, stop it." My thumb came down. "Let's see how you like losing something you love."